Look, I know Vic Pol have their hands full with youth crime, but where on earth were the resources at about 2:30 on Saturday afternoon to contain the scene after the Blues were getting straight up murdered by North Melbourne? By the time control was recaptured, the death of a football team on Saturday afternoon had occurred. Let's set things straight. These categories are all in favour of Carlton by game's end. But in the middle two quarters, this was the situation, and it led to a 55-point advantage in a devastating hour spread across both sides of half-time. This was the before, and this was the after. If you have North Melbourne feeling confident enough to look like the Globetrotters, best believe this is leading to a scathing review, and I'm wasting no time and showing no mercy. Buckle up. Let's start here. Ollie Hollands is a loose man on the back of the stoppage, and you have a role. North Melbourne have a couple, and their role is the same. To put it simply, it's to impact. How on earth is the guy that's not even facing the ball initially the one taking the mark? Why is that so important? Well, that mark advances them to centre wing. A stoppage or two later, they're generating a goal-scoring opportunity from that position. One of many scores from a clearance-type situation. Not acceptable. How about this? We've just taken an intercept grab. There's no option for an angular change which could diversify things, nor is there interest in that. Saad is also just chilling if we want to quickly resend it into the 50, so what does that leave? A pass backwards. And then this is fairly rubbish from one of your leaders in Wiedering. You've been told to play on, you invite pressure, you don't hit the pass, and look, the whole point of switching the play is to maximize this extra number, not hang them out to dry. You don't have the structure to support him because your numbers are waiting for it inside 50, and you're not supposed to turn the ball over like this. And this is why a loss of territory like that is so important in a quarter where you couldn't possess it for long periods. Because in a situation like this where Mitch McGovern takes a mark and goes corridor bound, as you should if it's on offer, you need to carry that over. But generally Carlton's decision making sucks and tunnel vision runs wild. So players like Adam Saad can't be used. As soon as Fantasia collects, stuff the easy hand pass with your dominant hand, look to your right and spread the play. We can't really carry the ball given the compression, so the kick lacks depth, and it pigeonholes us into a corner where the spare backman for North is most potent. So, do we want to talk about Carlton players not doing their role? Well, at basically every juncture in this sequence, that happens. First, it's Jackson Binns getting done in for an overhead contest for the second time in the quarter. He doesn't have the back shoulder coverage, and so where he's positioned, he's screwed, which I feel is a bit instruction-based. Then as the play progresses, Nick Haynes is too busy watching the man and still fails to initiate body contact when he does look, allowing Zerha a free run at the ball. This is not the first time this happens in this match either, resulting in a score. Then, Zerha's kick falls short, but you've got a few Blues in Fairyland not really watching the situation at hand. I mean, it's easy to blame, but that said, you're taking the piss. Like, what's Adam Saad's purpose here? Even though I know he's a kick intaker, it's not like he's manning anyone up. And ultimately, this stretch of events would have massive implications, kickstarting an avalanche. For the great year George Hewitt has had, he had an absolute stinker in this game, and here's why. Zerha switches off of Nick Haynes with the help of Wardlaw, and you need to be aware of this as a midfielder. The minute that switch happens, you're accountable. Akers at the back of stoppage is rendered completely useless because we can't win the ball at the stoppage, with Adam Chera also being completely useless in the first half, and George Hewitt got sucked into the ball to also not impact. You want to win the footy, you can't have 3 Blues in about 5 seconds fail to impact. It's a clean take by Larky, the lack of impact continues, and Zerha has an inch of space. Goal. This is also shambolic. Sam Doherty is looking for Paddy Cripps here. Now, it's a mixture of the kick being dog shit as well as Paddy Cripps having no interest in even trying to contest. He had this sort of mentality later in the quarter too. Not only that, but this basket case of a kick-in happens with both De Koning and McGovern on the wing as well. I understand the aggressiveness in a kick like this, but there's no cohesiveness, zero execution. And with Wiedering dropping back to take Larky justifiably, the only man between the ball and 2 North forwards, this is where the damage of a turnover like this is staggering. You've got a lefty running with momentum to those two mentioned, and Jackson Binns, who was a far side option, is now needing to do the impossible and shut that out. North Melbourne was smart in this instance. They just played straight up man on man. Don't give Carlton an inch. Why play a loose when they can't advance it and equally can't possess it under pressure? It causes Carlton a bit of grief for a few possessions, and then it pays off. A Doherty fumble means a potential overlap opportunity turns into McKercher getting goal side of Fogarty. Constanti is impacting at the footy, with Hollands, his matchup, compensating defensively, and that still has absolutely no bearing on the outcome of this play as McKercher plows through the defence with a full head of steam. And then it's Adam Cerra getting baked on a centre bounce clearance, yet again with a lack of body contact, which was a legitimate talking point a whole 2 weeks ago. I can safely say Cerra had more blunders like this than disposals in the entire first half. And so in the space of say about 4 minutes scoreboard time, the Roos have kicked 5 goals, the same amount Carlton would kick in 3 quarters. And it actually could have been worse. Take a look. Carlton win a free kick at the next centre bounce. There's no one running past, there's no one leading at the ball with intent. We've kicked to Cooper Lord and Corey Durden, both sitting behind their men. The kick's never going to travel that far. There's no challenging the man playing in front of you with a lead of sorts, so inevitably it's an intercept grab. And now, one of your key forwards is back too, part of this outcome. Everything winds up backwards in this sequence because Wietering playing on Larkey, he drops off as the kick falls short. This is with McGovern elsewhere, and even though it is a shit kick, it still brings Larkey into the game against a much smaller defender who isn't even one. Then, Carlton's keys have found themselves in this position. Saad is a loose defender. Does that matter? No, it does not. Because they find the disadvantage and actually hit a pass that makes full use of that. Add in an extra spare for Carlton that is also useless because of this. And then even with North Melbourne holding on to it for ages, we still concede a mark inside 50. With McGovern as your spare and Pitto in the ruck, Williams needed to push out as Fogarty presses forward to prevent the short pass. That doesn't happen, and with O'Sullivan dropping back far enough because of the space, the kick can be sat up for him to run and jump at, without Deconing impacting, as that matchup would usually indicate. We've talked about lack of impact. How about this from Harry Sheezel? And in one play, I've arguably seen more impact than our entire small forward assortment possessed on the weekend. And I think this was one of the more noticeable points of difference. North Melbourne's pressure on our backline and their ability to hold up play when needed. Sheezel excellently hand passes over the shoulder with a ton of awareness. Then North Melbourne actually equalise an outnumber, and here's Sheezel with a smother, then a pressure act, and then he makes himself available again to create an opportunity for a down-the-line pass. An invaluable territory gain again, because Carlton can't hit a target to save a life, with how narrowly they're playing the game. And don't even get me started about the Pitnet situation. What on earth is the point of playing Mark Pitnet if the guy's incompetent at playing the majority of the game in the ruck? The amount of times the structure and spacing got killed because this guy existed is crazy. Charlie Comben was having a field day because Pitnet sat in front of any other forward and any potential leading space was blocked off. Best believe Pitnet isn't a marking target for us forward of the ball, so it makes it very, very easy for North Melbourne. Why Pitnet isn't playing as the deepest forward when he moves like a truck, that bothers me. It killed pace on the ball too if he was up the ground, because Curnow needed to be up the ground as well for that ground level presence. With both key forwards up the ground, where are you going if you get past that point? It happened in the second, it happened in the third. And let's have a little discussion about accountability. Sam Doherty's man is Robert Hansen Jr. Constanti's tackle is tremendously important because Doherty's eliminated and Hansen Jr. is on the outside. Carlton have a spare number, but for what? He's completely useless in the passage as well, and we're very lucky to not see his impact for the freedom he has. Carlton are just as lucky to get the free kick, but for what? It's restricting, if anything. There's literally nothing down the line. These tools are just way too far off the ball, and then switch to the other side, and we don't have the balls for this kick. Binns is running back into where Durden needs to lead. Durden doesn't lead, and the kick is sat up, allowing for easy pickings for the opposition. You're trying to play safe football, but it's plagued with a similar detriment to if you actually played risky. Even here, Christ almighty, you've lost your man in Jai Simpkin, which has occurred off the back of A, finding yourself in a switch, and B, winning the clearance. Now you're wide open and the kick's not half bad. Gets the forward to run on and he can wait for the support to arrive with the space. But here's the tunnel vision again. One or two slick handballs has Zach Williams open in the corridor. But Adam Chera is reminded what it's like to have to possess the ball outside of training runs and gets run down by someone 10 years his senior. And well, it's Robin Hansen Jr. again, like on the previous example, getting free run out wide. Cooper Lord wants Silvani to take accountability, but Buddy is contesting the marking contest. It's scarily similar to the previous example. Constanti again impacting, winning the ball at ground level and quickly releases the runner. Haynes as the spare again is completely helpless. Wietering's ball watching, which means he loses a yard of space, and Larky's been reactive to what's occurring. This allows Hansen Jr. to get the ball maybe 20 metres deeper, so he's damaging within 50 of goal, and you bet he is damaging. This one tops it off, and I think we've already seen Haynes look like complete and utter dross against Zerha, and this seals it for me. Simpkin lines up Hewitt, knowing a brutal challenge means Motlop, his man, won't have a sniff, and Hewitt gets sent into next week. Collins has Caleb Daniel, Zerha is on Haynes as we said. Remember this, in eliminating Hewitt, it's become a 5-on-3, and through some tidy handballing by LDU, it has North Melbourne well placed to attack a flat-footed Blues side. This is fairly embarrassing by Cripper. He shoves Simpkin and then just forgets he exists, and then goes for a slide as he gets spun by that opponent. Haynes has just dropped off Zerha completely, which is absolutely devastating and mind-blowing considering, how much he's gotten off the leash already. Hollins has to cover. Daniel is now open, and Fogarty on McKercher goes to cover that handball, the obvious choice. But in being able to spin out of trouble, McKercher is now an option, and boom, there's another responding goal. A few errors, lapses, shit decision making, shit kicking, and a lack of accountability later, which aren't even worth another breath of mine given I'm partially sick. Carlton are down upwards of 7 goals at 3/4 time. Some of what we've discussed today is for sure a coaching issue. Some of the structural components or instructions or assignments pushed by the coaching staff are in fact detrimental to Carlton's ability to succeed. Additionally, some of this player output is just downright horrendous, and the execution is just disastrous. You can make any sort of justification and look deeper and discuss off-field issues, but let's be frank and keep it simple. Fact of the matter is, the players aren't good enough and the coaching isn't either. So that'll be me done with my analysis for the week. Hope understanding the why provides a bit of clarity and may not necessarily make the pill easier to swallow, but it rationalizes things a little bit. We'll be back here next week to do this all over again. We don't sleep. Hope you enjoyed. Stay safe. Don't let this loss dictate your week, and bye for now.